Hello. That look. She'd been thinking about the problem for some time. Thoughts would intrude into slack moments, such as sitting on the underground with nothing to read, or washing up the bits that won't go in the dishwasher. It had an identity, and she decided it was time she found the problem instead of the problem finding her. What did she know about it? Well, it always started the same way and ended the same way. It started when they disagreed. And then, when he gave her that look, was when it ended and he got his way. It wasn't an unpleasant look. Like seeing a helplessly cute kitten was how she'd once described it to herself. A strange way to describe something from such a blokish bloke. But that was how it was. He looked. End of argument. That wasn't always a problem, of course. Sometimes when he had his way it was fine. She smiled reminiscently, but sometimes it wasn't. Even he had to admit her choices were better for every day. She was the practical one. She returned to the problem. It hadn't been a problem at first. He hadn't looked that often at the start, and they were still exploring the ways they were alike rather than their differences. But time passed, they settled down. Nothing changed quickly, but their differences became more important, and that look worked for him. And when something works, people keep on pressing the same old button. He probably wasn't even aware he was doing it. He was a proper bloke some ways, but it was coming to dominate her life. No, things needed to change, and it was her that needed to change them. He earned the money, saw the big picture, and was in charge. But she organised and ran things. At first, she could think of nothing. That look went straight to her. She only had one reply to it. Her response was compelled. She had no options, and it stopped her thinking. It was so dominating she had to think about it in places he didn't come to. There she could draw back from the situation a little, to work out why that look affected her so much. People are all different, she decided, but they do fall into general groups. Some people feel safe with familiarity. As a child feels safe and copes with the world. Some people feel safe when they're satiated and content. Some when they're told authoritatively, this is the way it is, this is safe. Others sometimes it's so safe you can roll over and snore. She smiled again. It was good. She still smiled when she thought about him. She felt safe when she had a plan for the future. She liked a plan. It was the unknown she disliked. That was what worried her. How would he react if his look didn't work? How would it affect their relationship? Would it recover? Could it survive? And after the coulds came the what-ifs, not to mention the hows and the whens. It's amazing how thoughts can run away with you. She started thinking about the unknown and it scared her to bits. She took a deep breath and stopped. It took a considerable effort of will to draw back to her previous detached position. We all have our battles. Was it his fault for giving her the look when he should have listened to her? Or hers for encouraging him by reacting the same way every time he did it? She could think of other ways of looking at it from both sides, but much as she tried, it was hard to see fault really on either side. She had to admit there wasn't much point. They were both just doing what they did. That was what they were like. Never mind the blame. Just cope with the reality, she told herself. What if she did something different? Then she wouldn't be like that anymore and he might not like her. Careful, she drew back from the abyss. Different sorts of like. She'd been changing ever since they met. People do. That's life. He hadn't gone off her yet. She couldn't guess his reaction. It wouldn't be unknown if she could. There was one certainty, though. When she gave in, it suited him, and in some way it also suited her. That gave her pause for thought. Her response satisfied a need in her, something to do with the uncertainty. It wasn't forced against her will. It was only a look that did it. True, she wasn't always happy with the results, but her reaction was not alien. It came from her. It was of her, so it must do something for her. Digging for that need was like excavating a vast rock. She never freed it from the ground. It was part of the bedrock that made her, but she could see its shape and walk round it. She knew its outline and its nature, and that the need must be satisfied. It could not be removed, but now she knew it, and the known isn't scary. It can be considered. There has to be more than one way to satisfy a need. What else could I do? She wondered, then smiled. Yes, that might work. But she didn't want to rely on one forlorn hope. This called for alternatives. How many? A decent choice means at least 6 different alternatives, she decided, though she couldn't say exactly what she based that on. Strange, she seemed to be heading into the unknown and enjoying it. Being decisive, having a bit of an adventure. But why not? It was all in her head. The outside world didn't enter into it. This part was her own private adventure and perfectly safe. At first, she was stuck. But she was a creative girl. Some of her earliest memories were at primary school, making things and writing simple stories, creating with her hands, with words, and sometimes purely with imagination. And there had been more occasions since. She considered her triumphs and brought that triumphant girl to the table to face her present problem. That worked. Soon she had a choice of 8 different ways to go about things, and her unchained mind felt many more might come, but never mind that for now. She picked the best 6, knowing she had 2 in hand, and more if she needed them. She could be infinitely inventive, knowing that gave her a pleasant boost in itself and encouraged her to go on. Thinking forward, she anticipated the next time he would give that look, recreating where they might be. His look, and what brought it on, and then filling in the picture with colour and sound and smell. And then she had it right. She tried out her alternatives in theory. She rejected one almost immediately, and another stood out as a fun way to go about it. But she went through all of them before she decided that that would be the first one to try. It happened sooner than he thought. He suggested they could paint the chimney breast burnt orange for contrast. A strange mixture of bachelor and 1960s taste. No, she said firmly. He turned and looked. She leapt on him. Hands reached for his underarms, determined fingers wriggled and tickled, and he collapsed. His serious sphinx-like face twisted in mirth, heels drummed, arms flailed. He helplessly, totally lost control. It was a side of him she'd not seen or anticipated. Drawing back, she realised he was still smiling as he said, "OK, you win. Magnolia." A new and powerful element had entered the relationship. Tempting, but she knew she shouldn't let it become her look. She wanted something more than that. Thank you very much. Please don't forget there are 50-something more videos out there, all on this channel. Go and have a look through. They vary tremendously, all sorts of stories. Right. Hope you enjoyed it. Good night. Goodbye.